among conservatives and among Republicans. I know that the Speaker addressed the conference. I want to ask you, is the mutiny over? Do you believe Mr. Boehner has the votes to get his plan through the House?
I believe we're going to have the votes. I believe it'll be bipartisan. But more importantly, I believe it doesn't go far enough. It goes as far as we can. And Speaker Boehner has been the adult in the room for so long, getting what can be gotten, negotiating in good faith. And we finally reached a point where we've got to go with Speaker Boehner's plan, because ultimately, this is the plan we got from the Senate. This is the plan we got from the president. We've got to go with our plan.
And Congressman Welch, welcome back yourself. I want to ask you, as a Democrat in the House, could you see your way to voting for the Boehner plan?
No, I can't. You know, what Michael Bennet said is really true. This is a low bar, and the Congress is on the verge of failing the American people. I mean, whether it's the Boehner plan or the McConnell plan, we're literally having this debate as though it's optional that America pays its bills. The other point is that we have to start focusing on creating jobs here. And that discussion is almost completely off the table. One of the biggest challenges in this economy is to get people back to work. What we have to do is two things. One, we have to have a bipartisan plan. Number two, we have to put everything on the table, and that has to include revenues. If we do revenues as well as cuts.
But revenues are off the table, Mr. Welch.
That's right.
That's not the issue right now. That's kind of like last week's. And I don't get this. I agree with you, sir. We need a bipartisan compromise. For the life of me, and I'm not an expert. I haven't been in Washington, haven't served many years, but once upon a time I did. Can we not reconcile Reid and Boehner, get out of this mess, and then move on towards real budget reform, which is what Senator Lee properly wants, and I agree with him on that, and tax reform so we can grow this pathetic economy? That's what I want. I want to move on and do stuff to grow the economy. That's what I want, Peter. But we got to get through this death thing first.
That's right. And we have to pay our bills, and we can't default. And the minimum that we can expect is that we'll accomplish what you just laid out. And then will we move on? Time will tell. But that's got to be the goal.
Senator Lee, come back to you. I know you're opposed to this, but why is my reconciliation idea wrong?
Well, look, at the end of the day, if we raise the debt limit yet again, reflexively, without including some kind of permanent structural spending reform mechanism in place, we're just going to make the matter worse. And as I explained in my book, The Freedom Agenda, you can't do that without a constitutional amendment, because we can't bind future Congresses unless we amend the Constitution. That's what we have to do this time. Now, people can talk all they want about the need to come to the table, the need for an agreement. Right now, there's only one proposal on the table to raise the debt limit, and it's the Cut, Cap, and Balance Act. I want other people to submit recommendations, to submit bills in legislative form that we can debate, discuss, and amend if necessary, rather than just sit around and complain about it. But right now, we've got only one plan on the table.
All right, I understand. Senator, I just want to ask you, you know, Ronald Reagan taught me sometimes it's better to take 3/4 of a loaf than no loaf at all. I guess I'm asking you, why can't we take 3/4 of the loaf now and then move on to the very excellent recommendations that you are proposing?
I'm happy to take 3/4 of a loaf if that's what it in fact is. Right now, we don't have any loaf on the table other than the one that has been offered up in the form of the Cut, Cap, and Balance Act. If somebody else has got a 3/4 loaf, I'd love to see it.
You know, Mr. Bennett, as a sidebar, but I think it's going to be an important sidebar, a lot of people on Wall Street are very worried about a debt downgrade. You all could pass the debt ceiling increase and still get downgraded because the underlying work is not sufficient. We had the S&P ratings guy on here last night. One of his warnings was this, that these congressional committees that are going to convene, or this congressional committee, the Joint Committee, to look at further spending cuts by the end of the year, that may itself cause a downgrade, Senator Bennett. Now, both Mr. Reid and Mr. Boehner have that Joint Committee in their plans, but that may doom us to a downgrade, Senator. Is anybody raising that?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I've raised that very concern. Look, I strongly believe that we need to get our fiscal house in order. It took us a long time to dig into this mess. It's going to take us a long time to dig out of it. But I completely agree. I think that what would be useful would be some sort of fail-safe mechanism that would call for the Congress to take $4 trillion out over the next 10 years or so. It's not going to solve the problem, but it's the number that the rating agencies have said would be a good number. And so that we know that we're going to have an up or down vote before the end of the year on a plan that that does that. And if the committee doesn't come forward with something like that, maybe we could get 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans to come together and come straight to the floor. Those are the kinds of ideas that those of us that are actually concerned about dealing with this problem in real time are trying to suggest, for exactly the reason you're talking about. The risk of the downgrade doesn't go away just because we lift the debt ceiling.
That's correct. And Congressman Issa, I want to raise another downgrade risk with you that I heard very clearly from David Beers, the top S&P sovereign debt rating guy, last night on this very show. He says a 2-step debt ceiling increase, which means this whole drama may be repeated at the end of the year into next year. He basically, if you looked at what he said in his body language, almost certainly will give us a downgrade. Why is Mr. Boehner, why are you all insisting on a 2-step? Why not just go for it?
Well, first of all, we'd love to just go for it, but you need a partner to dance with in the Senate, and we don't have one. Second of all, I think it's pretty clear that if we drive our decisions based on a rating agency rather than the underlying facts, that every day we try to find ways to cut spending. You know, we nearly passed, and I voted for, an amendment to cut out $2.2 million of public federal dollars that get spent every year on fireworks, while our cities and municipalities typically go find private money. They don't spend government money just to do fireworks on the 4th of July. There's lots of places to cut. We're going to have to cut them. I'm concerned about rating, but I'm more concerned about heading from the wrong direction to the right direction. And, you know, Peter Welch is a wonderful guy. I remember when he introduced his governor, the governor of Vermont, who told us about how he balanced the budget by making the kinds of cuts without a tax increase, and everyone was pleased in Vermont. The fact is, the right way to balance a budget is to take every set of spending out first, and then if you need real revenue that comes out of other people, you take it sparingly. We haven't done that ever. This is the first time we're saying no new taxes. We need to get ourselves on a diet.
That's the reason, by the way, the no new taxes. That's why I initially said, what's so bad about the Harry Reid plan? Now, I got my head chopped off by some of my fellow conservatives, but Larry, I give him a lot of credit. Peter Welch, do you give Harry Reid credit? And Peter Welch, I want you to react to this, what Darrell Issa is hinting at. Speaker Boehner, for some reason today, again on the same radio show, my pal Laura Ingraham, he says Democrats have an insatiable appetite for job-killing tax hikes. You want to react to that for me?
That's sort of the political talking point. I'm like, we've got a tax code that's a mess, and there's a lot of Republicans that want to get rid of the ethanol tax credit. I'm with them. Why not take that $6 billion and add it to deficit reduction? There's all kinds of places we could go to make our tax code better, use the money for deficit reduction. But I want to come back to your point about the downgrade. The big defect, a big defect in the Boehner plan is the likelihood of a downgrade. We go from AAA to AA. The average rate that AAA pays is about 3%, little less. The average that AA pays is about 3.75%. That's $100 billion out of the pocket of the American taxpayer. So that's an enormous flaw in the Boehner plan.
No, you're exactly right. But there's a flaw in the Reid plan, too, because of this congressional commission that reports back later on. Senator Lee, I want to give you the last word. What will you do, what will you and your colleagues do if it comes down to the Boehner vote, Senator?
Well, I will vote no. I will oppose it, and I know that there are several of my colleagues who feel the same way. How many of us will go that way remains to be seen, but I stand in the same place where I was before I even took office, which is no debt limit increase without a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. You can't perpetuate this problem without fixing the underlying problem.
All right, I appreciate your principle very, very much. I mean, I'm entirely sympathetic with your view. Senator Bennett, I'll give you the last word. How's this going to end up in the Senate? Give me a forecast, Senator.
My forecast is that we're going to get something that will pass the Senate, is going to pass the House, and will get us past this debt ceiling. But I remain very concerned about what the risk of this downgrade might be. You know, Larry, one of the things that I've been struck by since I've been here is that there is not a mayor in America that would jeopardize their credit rating for a political talking point. And both sides here shouldn't be doing that either. It's too serious. And the work that you are talking about are having to do is really what we ought to get focused on.
All right, John, I'm going to leave it there. You're all terrific. Thank you very much. Pardon my own frustration. I'm just trying to live and learn. Senator Michael Bennett, Senator Mike Lee, your terrific House members, Peter Welch and Darrell Issa, thank you for helping us this evening. Up next, folks, threats to the U.S. economy are mounting. You heard it.